Success? Almost success, the return of an old friend, and a potential identity crisis. It could only be another episode of Desperate House. I mean, This Week in Philadelphia Sports. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of, if you haven't guessed already, the carousel that takes you around every Philadelphia sports team and breaks down all of the news along the way. But before we get started, guys, if you are new around here, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me if you could. We're so close now to getting 10,000 subscribers. We're almost at 8k, which blows my mind. So just thank you for all of the support. It has been amazing seeing so many new faces in our comment section, and hopefully that trend continues. If it doesn't, that would suck. So hit the button and we'll go from there. Before we get onto somewhere else, you may notice we've got a different, background now. Oh, Liam's got a Flyers jersey. Oh, Liam needs to change the background. Well, sucks to be you, because I'm still in my bedroom, only this time Carson Wentz is behind me. Not literally, that'd be a bit weird. But here we are, different jersey, different video. But we're going to start off with the Eagles, who of course had a very busy week, and what could have been a week in which they've topped out their free agency tasks for the offseason. Howie Roseman has been shopping around, looking for groceries, finding some bargains, overspending on some outdated wine. Ronald Darby. No, Liam, don't go back into that again. Okay, we were leaving that in the past. And more importantly, bringing back an old friend. The big news this week was that Vinny Curry, who spent 6 years in Philadelphia after being drafted by his local team, is back with the Eagles after a loan stint in Tampa Bay. If you look back at last season, Vinny Curry wasn't exactly at his best. He had just 2.5 sacks and 21 tackles. But we do have to remember that it was a new scheme. It was hot in Tampa Bay. That may have been a factor, but more importantly, he could have been battling an injury. According to a couple of reports, he was dealing with a high ankle sprain, got rushed back from it, and in turn, that's what caused a slight decline in his play. And the Eagles, better than any, should understand that when looking at what Brandon Graham had to deal with this past season. The biggest takeaway from this, though, is Vinny Curry's cap number. So before he was actually cut by the Eagles 2 off seasons ago, he was due to cost the team $11 million in cap space, which isn't exactly great. So when the Eagles do part ways and he lands in Tampa Bay, they think they're getting a good deal with $6.5 million. He's now costing the Eagles just $2.5 million, which for a pass rusher who in this scheme has proven himself to be very productive is an absolute bargain. Curry has schematic familiarity. He arguably played his best football in 2017 under Jim Schwartz and spent over 50% of defensive snaps helping out the team. The main criticism with Curry, though, was he could never really finish plays. It's sort of like, as I alluded to on the Outside Insider podcast this week, going to bake a cake, getting all the ingredients together, putting it in the oven, going out to work, and when you get back, realising you'd forgot to turn the oven on. That was very much what Vinny Curry's play had been like. But if there is a team that knows Vinny Curry, that knows what he's capable of, that understands the potential in his play, it's the scouting staff that spent 6 years working with him, the coaching staff that saw him develop during that time, go from one scheme to another, and then somehow flourish under Jim Schwartz. Curry was an integral part of the Eagles' Super Bowl run, and getting him at just $2.5 million, if the Eagles get even a fraction of the production that he flashed in 2017, then that could be the most impactful move of the offseason so far, without a shadow of a doubt. The Eagles love to rotate their defensive ends, we know that by now, and what Vinny Curry brings to the table, as we said, it's familiarity, it's reliability, and if you look at all of his numbers through his years in Philadelphia, he does get better with age. The more experience he has, the more he was able to learn under Chris Wilson, he was really able to flourish under the nurturing of some of the veterans on the team. But you can't help but feel that this does put Chris Long somewhat out in the dark. A man that said after restructuring his deal that just because money's been moved doesn't mean money's been made. Long wants to make a business decision. As we've said before, he wants to be a starter in this league. The issue is that although his snaps went up from 2017 to 2018, with Vinny Curry back in the fold and sort of replacing Michael Bennett, it's sort of a sign that they don't trust Chris Long to elevate and pick up where Bennett left off. Instead, they're going to go back to Vinny Curry, and I feel like Chris Long will stay in that same role if he stays in Philadelphia. It would be heartbreaking to see the Walter Payton Man of the Year part ways after giving so much to the city of Philadelphia and its communities and its schools. However, he's got to do what's best for himself, and I don't think anyone could be mad at Long for seeing himself in a slightly extended role elsewhere outside of a pass rush rotation that runs so deep. Also, before we move on to another team, mild identity crisis. At some point in the last week, somebody commented on one of our YouTube videos using the nickname LJ. And I was for a minute like, well, hang on a minute. I've got a nickname. Move out the way, cool kids at the back of a bus. LJ is in town, we're sitting down, and I am at the back of the bus throwing chewing gum at everyone else. I'm that kid now. And then I put it on Twitter as a bit of a joke. I wasn't too fond of nicknames because the last nickname I had at school, as referenced in the podcast, was Ankles, because my mum shrunk my school trousers and they came down to my ankles. So I wasn't sure how to stand on this nickname scenario, but then out of nowhere, everybody, and I mean everybody, has started calling me LJ. Whether it's Twitter, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, wherever, LJ seems to be sticking. So you guys have now started standing this whole LJ thing. I've got no choice but to wave the white flag. Outside of that though, the Eagles brought in another face, and this one familiar for slightly different reasons. Andrew Sendejo. Yeah, he's coming to Philly. The former Minnesota Viking ended last year with a groin injury sustained against this Eagles team, and as a result the Vikings didn't want to pay that cap hit that followed suit. And while many look at that season as a disappointment and that the Vikings found their replacement in the depth chart beneath him, it's fair to say again that the Eagles have once again extracted value from another team. Sendejo, yes, he's 31 years old, but they needed to replace Corey Graham, and at this point anything's an upgrade. I mean, I could be with my 38.5-inch vertical, which we keep. I've never mentioned that. What, 38.5? How did I? What? Average college athlete? What? However, Sendejo is a primarily in-the-box safety that will come down and really hit thicker tight ends, bigger receivers and stronger ball carriers. Now this does lead to some questionable pass interference calls and other penalties along the way, but Sendejo is a guy that I think will complement McLeod's skill set, someone that will hit hard, come down in the box and wrap up those tacklers, and although he can be seen as pretty reckless at times, great man by the way, I think Sendejo does have a nice niche here in Philadelphia. And the thing to bear in mind that everyone is overlooking here is that yes, he's 31 years old, but in 2017, the year before that groin injury, he had a career year with the Minnesota Vikings. He was playing his best football. I don't think 28 is a prime age of a player anymore. I think that is gradually going up as sports science increases and players begin to take care of their bodies in new ways, experiment with new diets. I think Sendejo has easily got himself a few more years in this league, and he's probably playing for that one last contract, for one last big payday before he hangs up the boots. He's had a great career starting from the bottom, moving up, and has been a sensational special teamer during his time with the Vikings as well, and that could be another role that Dave Phipp would love to utilise. The other aspect of this is that the Eagles' third safety played 64% of snaps last season. In the postseason beforehand, played 60% of defensive snaps. The Eagles like having an insurance policy there, and with Jenkins down in the box in these big dime and big nickel packages as they're so known, where they take out a linebacker and bring in an extra defensive back, not only are you taking the pressure off someone like Avonte Maddox, who hasn't played the position until his rookie year, but you're almost negating the loss of Jordan Hicks, where although you've signed LJ Fort, you're not going to be relying on that linebacker or having to pay extortionate money for a free agent because you're so used to running those big dime looks where you've got the extra DB. The Eagles love running situations where you've got two safeties over the top and that hybrid in the middle is going to be a nice pairing, and as I've said, it buys the team time with Avonte Maddox. And that brings us on to quite the rant, because there has been this bizarre narrative in recent days where, oh, the Eagles are getting older on defense, or oh, they're spending too much money on the older positions and they're getting old and veterans. And firstly, I don't know where this has come from or why. Secondly, what are you expecting? Sendejo to just limp out onto the link with a Zimmer frame? To have an elderly people's scooter just scooting around the field in a cover 3? That's not going to happen. Yes, the Eagles are investing in older guys in free agency. Do you know why? Because they build through the draft. And the simple fact of the matter is, if you pay free agents low amounts of money, like Vinny Curry, like Sendejo, then it buys the team time to figure out what they have in the guys lower on the depth chart, and more importantly, develop the younger guys who may not be ready to step in straight away. If you're going to draft a 5th round safety now because you've shored up that position, they're not going to come in and play as a starter in week 1. It's very rare that happens. You want them to develop, to nurture that skill set. Someone like Rasul Douglas would be a great example of that building. And not only that, okay, a lot of people are looking at that Sendejo signing specifically, saying, why didn't the Birds get Adrian Amos? Why didn't they get Clayton Geathers? Why didn't they get Trey Boston? Well, you would be the third safety. What do you mean third safety? I mean, I've been given 5 contract offers where I would be the starting safety. Yeah, but we've got Rodney and Malcolm, and we just want someone to tide over. So you're just going to be a placeholder, really, if that's okay with you. you're just not going to find it. That does not happen in this league. The Eagles spend low on free agents in the trenches, outside of the trenches, at skill positions, and draft guys underneath. Do not be surprised if they take a speedy receiver in the lower rounds of this draft to develop behind Deshaun Jackson, so that when he leaves, the heir to the throne is there. That's how building through the draft works. You see it in the trenches. Look at Sayamalo, look at someone like Matt Pryor, look at Vaitai. While they're keeping around Kelsey, they're keeping around Jason Peters until those guys are ready to eventually take over those roles. It is the perfect way to build a team. You are not going to go into free agency and buy a star to remodel that team around. Who do you think we are? The New York Giants? Well, they do the opposite. Remember the last time the Eagles tried to build through free agency and bring in all the stars? Didn't end too well, did it? Didn't end too well at all. And of course, I mean, one of my favourite signings of the Doug Peterson era was Patrick Robinson. And I remember he was slated in training camp, and I did a film ream video. You can find it on phillysportsnetwork.com. This was before the videos were a thing. This was OG Liam Jenkins here. This was an article format, okay? And I said that in 2015, as an Indianapolis Colt, he was so much better in the slot. That's where his skill set is best. On the outside, he struggles a bit with long speed. He doesn't quite have the legs to keep up. That's where he's going to hurt. He needs to be a slot cornerback. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, unintentionally, the Eagles trade for Ronald Darby. This pushes Patrick Robinson inside. He may have been the most impactful signing of that offseason and a key cog in that Super Bowl run. That is what Sendejo does. That is what Curry does. That is what LJ Fort does. That is what Malik Jackson, what Deshaun Jackson do. It doesn't matter. You cannot win with kids. You do not build through free agency. You get the pieces you need to tide you over until someone like, I don't know, Sidney Jones, someone like Cravon LeBlanc are ready to take over that role. And well, now we've got that rant out of our system, I think it's time to go and take a look at other teams around the league. And we're going to start off with the Sixers, who are in the playoffs. So that's the thing. Literally a day after we uploaded this video, the Sixers do end up beating out the Hornets and going into the NBA playoffs for the second straight season. So strap yourselves in, buckle up, and get ready for a sweeping of the Celtics. No more losing to the Celtics, because the other night, with a nice Jimmy Butler, that was my impersonation there, the Sixers were able to finally break the curse. And if we're going to take a second to talk about Jimmy Butler, playoff Jimmy has arrived. That's right, the locker room cancer that everyone so calls, and the bad teammate and the selfish guy has been an absolute monster in closing over the course of these last 7 days. If you don't believe me, just take a look. In the game against the Hornets, the Sixers were doomed. They were without Lord Joel Embiid. Whatever were they going to do? How would they win? Don't worry, because playoff Jimmy's going to score 7 fourth quarter points on a 23-point night and 9 assists. He's just going to, you know, put the team on his back and off he goes. What about the Celtics? I mean, obviously he had the game winner, but that was to go along with 22 points, 15 of which came in the fourth quarter. And even in that game where Trayseth of Youngington put a dagger in the hearts of Sixers fans, it was Jimmy Butler again who led the team in scoring for the third time that week. Playoff Jimmy has arrived. Joel Embiid is standing it and said, you know, he's the most unguardable player in the NBA. So Embiid is off, his ego through the roof. He is a player we all love by this point. But Jimmy Butler entering a real fiery stage of this season. The team are firing on all cylinders. It's great to see the Sixers are going to be striding into the playoffs with hopes high. As of right now, they stand at a third seed, which is a great spot to be in. Are they going to end up fighting for that Eastern Conference crown? Who knows? The potential is there. I think it's a very, very exciting time, which is just as well, because in March Madness, when Villanova go crashing out to Purdue, you need something to pick up. And I've run out of spirits, I've run out of beer by this point, and betting hasn't gone well on March Madness. But on that note, guys, if you entered our Philly Sports Network bracket, I hope you're doing better than I am, where I stand 11th at the minute after having Villanova in the finals. So that has gone down like a cup of cold sick. But of course, we are giving away some hoodies, some t-shirts, and a phone call where I sing Enrique Iglesias' Hero to you. All you've got to do for that prize is finish in the top 5 of our March Madness bracket. Here are the standings on the left. How are you doing so far? Let me know in the comments below. On to the Flyers, and again, we're heading for situation normal, where it's the end of the season, there's 9 games to go, and no one knows if the Flyers are going to be a playoff team. It happens every damn year since about 2010. Like, they never just coast into the playoffs. They don't wrap it up 20 games in advance. They will leave it till the final night and then mess it up, presumably. They've won 19 games since January, but they're 5-5 in their last 10, dropping 2 games this week, which hasn't exactly gone to plan. Although Carter Hart is out there making 40 saves a game and looking like me. I've been told we're twins. It's okay, Carter. We'll go for a drink sometime and we'll confuse the world. Who is the real Carter Hart? I don't know. 2 tough losses for the Flyers this week, but the run is not over yet. They've still got time. They're only 9 points outside of the playoffs at the moment. It is still feasible. They are still fighting. And as every other team begins to unwind, especially those already who have secured their lot, are we going to see a slight upset? Are we going to do a little shimmy and get excited? I think we might. So don't panic if you're a Flyers fan. Get revved up. Get down to the Wells Fargo Centre and support the team, because this may be another moment in Philadelphia sports history where they somehow get into the playoffs and they make it to the big dance. Or they could not, and they could flop. So that is a potential issue. On to the Phillies, and Bryce Harper is hitting dingers out there in spring training. We are under a week away from the regular season opener, the first of 182 games? That's a lot. I mean, baseball is the only sport I know where the beat writers take a holiday mid-season. That's not the brand we wanted. It's all about the grind here at Philly Sports Network. So Phillies baseball is almost back. I'm very excited. I can't wait to actually try and understand what all of these numbers mean. I mean, OPS, I think, stands for on percentage slugs. We're getting there now. There's a lot of stars now walking around Philadelphia. I can see Citizens Bank Park being an absolute trip and a half. So I'm going to try and get out there, hopefully, within the next month or two to experience the game, maybe vlog the situation, let you know what's going on. I'll be in Philly at the very latest by August, with a bit of luck. So fingers crossed I'll be out there meeting as many of you as possible, maybe drinking and getting a bit emotional at a Phillies game. Who knows? Hope to see many of you out there, but make sure you're going out and supporting what could be a transformative time for the Philadelphia Phillies. And finally, just a little note on the Philadelphia Union, because last night they went out and beat the Columbus Crew 3-0. And with only 16 players available on their roster, David Acham, who had lost his father just days before the game and was asked by the team if he wanted to return home for the funeral, stayed with the team and scored 2 goals to guide the Philadelphia Union to their first win of the season. And what a moment that is. That is so wholesome. Our thoughts from Philly Sports Network go out to David, his family, and everyone affected by that loss. But for David to go out and perform in the way he did and arguably have one of the best games of his career was just a very emotional sight. And I know our Union writers at phillysportsnetwork.com were touched by this, and there was a great article about it on our website. But what a moment that was for David Acham, and I think that just need mentioning, because it's something like that that puts it all back into perspective. But that is it, guys, for another episode of This Week in Philadelphia Sports. We're going to have a film room coming up tomorrow on Nate the Great Sudfeld and why he is the guy to back up Carson Wentz, and that no veteran QB help is needed from this point. We're also going to have another Eagles mock draft and another video like we had about those running backs, on top of all the articles I'm writing at phillysportsnetwork.com, on top of all the podcasts, on top of the articles everyone else is doing at phillysportsnetwork.com. If you want your daily dose of Philly sports coverage with a twist where it's fueled on passion and not clickbait, phillysportsnetwork.com is my website. We've got 30 writers now grinding away, giving you guys the best content we can. It would mean a lot if you could check us out. Give us a read before your morning route on the way to work. From myself, Liam Jenkins, you can follow me at LiamJenkins21. I'll see you next time.